right and forward. You can shake your head, but I would love to take you on the golf course tour in the morning and show you exactly where we're putting the tees and how it relates to the net there.
The majority of players here probably shoot over 85, something like that. You can't hit them.
Well, it's a very similar situation to the trees between 1 and 10.
Mm-hmm.
If that net stayed there, it's not going to break my heart. It's an attempt to possibly get the net down. But if we redo that hole and there's a consensus that the net should stay along the road, net stays.
I'm looking at your plan. I think it's 4 and 5, the new one that you're designing. And I think 4, you say, is about 315 yards. I don't know my glasses, I can't see. There are a lot of big hitches here, and you've got a wind behind. They're going to hit that green. And I see the 5th tee box, you move to the left of the green. They're in danger.
Okay.
They're, where the present tee box is on 12, a few balls go, but they don't go on the tee box.
Right. No, as I mentioned, I mean, these are very subjective arguments.
But they were.
Yeah, and I say it's not dangerous, and you say it's dangerous. We can sit here all night. I appreciate your comments, I really do, and I take them to heart, I take them to mind. But I believe that layout is fine where 11 green is, and I hope some people go at the green, because it's fun. Did you watch the US Open today, number 7? Excellent, excellent. Guys go for the green, make it 5s and 6s, 3s. It's fun. And I think the 12 tees are fun.
I was a member of the course in England, and they had some similar. Somebody came to the States and said, we have to have a hole like this where you can reach from the tee. It was a disaster.
Really?
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
So I've got a question that I've tried to answer for many members. One of the questions that keeps coming up is, rather than do 9 and 9, can't we just shut down the course for 1 year and do them all at once?
Yeah, that's certainly, I mean, Daryl and I are both, just like many people are, I mean, we're fans of trying to get it done if we're allowed to do it as quickly as we possibly can. But logistically, particularly up here where the season is relatively short, the scope of work that we're looking at, we just literally could not get it all done in a single season. It would just be much too difficult. And again, we went through many options on how we can do this, and speaking with the people that we may be working with in both of our experiences. I've built a golf course in Alberta, Dale's got experience, and we just feel like the best option is the one that we've got on the table in terms of being realistic about time frames and potential situations that may arise.
Jeff, and this probably is another question that you're going to ask Daryl to answer, but I look at option 1 as the sort of the lipstick on the pig model, which is basically changing the washers in the faucet when it starts to leak, but not changing the faucet, which you should. That option 2 is a lot of money, and somehow talks about not changing the layout, but trying to attack the deficiencies and outstanding infrastructure issues. So I wonder if somebody can explain how that happens. You talk about option 3 saying, well, to do it, close half the course, fix half the course, 2 years to do it, it's done. How does option 2 play out from a timing and a construction and impact on the golf course standpoint?
No, that's a good question. And Daryl could correct me if I'm wrong, but basically I think the construction phasing plays out exactly the same way. The only difference is that we don't end up creating the 5 new holes that I proposed to change the routing or to improve the routing. Would that be fair to say? Because the greens that are deficient still need to get rebuilt to resolve the problems that we've described. The bunkers need the same work, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the construction phasing would be the same, except there wouldn't be as many any changes to the design, more or less.
Yeah. So just so we're clear, in order to do that, you got to close 9, fix 9, close 9, and fix 9, because there is a question that's out there saying, well, why don't we just do 1 or 2 holes and we'll fix the infrastructure issues in bits and pieces. Daryl, is that even feasible? When you're talking about the infrastructure kind of problems and irrigation and drainage and everything else, can you do it higgledy-piggledy, one hole here and one hole there over the course of time?
Some of the issues that have come up over the years have been bunkers and ponds. If I've been at Greens Committee meetings over the last 15 years, it's in bunkers and ponds, fairway irregularities, and drainage. Have been kind of common themes over the years. So to address all of those properly and easily, you would do them together. So we have 56 bunkers, actually 59, doesn't matter. They all need to be rebuilt. There's 13 greens that have significant problems that would be that should be rebuilt. A lot of the bunker work and green work are tied together. When we do bunker drainage and greenside drainage, they tie together. So to answer your question, everything is possible, but is it economically accurate or right to do it that way? I would say the most economic way is to do 9 at a time, because then we can resolve the issues all together. Bunkers, ponds, fairway irregularities. So I'm not talking design. I'm just talking about the issues that we have. So in my estimation, the most economic way to resolve the issues that we currently have is in a 9-hole fashion.
Thank you.
I'll just add one thing to that too, and we did mention this last night, is that it is extremely more economic and more efficient, obviously, to tackle as many holes as you can in one phase. It's between mobilization and ordering less sand, less pipe, less gravel, etc., in smaller pieces of the project. By the time you get to the end of it, I mean, your cost could be 50–60% more than it would be doing the entire thing at once or breaking it into 2 9-hole phases.
So I heard that there won't be a driving range. Is that a fact, or like a lot of people just want to play to come and hit a ball? And if that's the case, why not designate one hole? Like instead of playing 9, have 8 holes and save a hole where guys can hit bomb their drivers all day long.
Okay. Actually, we had a little meeting this afternoon. We were out on the course, and that particular issue came up. We were all in agreement about how can we keep the driving range open for the entire duration of the project, and we found a solution.
Okay.
But it's a secret.
Well, no, actually, instead of, was it your idea? I'm going to give credit where credit's due, but somebody's idea. There are 2 spots. There's an entrance to the golf course just down near 6th Green, where the gate is. There's a large area there, and the area that we're proposing for the short game practice area to go, which is basically the centers of 5 and 7 fairway. We figure we've got enough room in there, and it's much better actually to have trucks and materials and whatnot getting delivered over at the gate, taken in by number 6, than it is trying to come through the clubhouse area and get to the practice range. So it actually makes a lot more sense to use those 2 spots. But the only issue we may have is in phase 2, right? Because one of the reasons we wanted to use the range is because it's between both sections of where we're going to be building, but we'll be able to figure something out, I think, and that's a good spot for the first part of the project anyhow.
So when you were describing the logistics of trying to not do it in 1 year, was that essentially tied to the inability to create or to have enough rock trucks and excavators, or was it more tied to have the ability to get enough turf put in and rebuilt in that scenario? Because if you did it all in 1 year, you ripped it all up, you potentially could have everything done, assuming you got enough contractors and manpower to do it.
Yeah, the issue with that, and I totally understand your point, but the issue of quality is extremely important to us as well. I mean, when I used this example the other day. I'm a member at a club in Ontario that was built in 1929, and nothing has been significantly reconstructed in 90 years because it was done properly in the first place. And one of the concerns that Daryl and I have talked about is that we want to make sure the quality is right. You know, we don't want this club to be going through this exact same scenario 12 or 15 years from now because we cut a bunch of corners and try to rush and get it done because somebody wanted to play golf in 2013. That's the fine line that we have to walk, and we feel that if we try to just belt through it with way too many people out here, way too many pieces of equipment, we could potentially compromise the quality of the work that we're doing. So that is certainly you know, one of the considerations that we've made.
Great presentation, thanks, Jeff. Just a quick question from an OpEx perspective. You talked initially about the cost drain in the current environment that we're dealing with the course, and looking at the cost gap between Plan B and Plan C of maximum 1.3 million. Is there a preliminary assessment around cost savings under the new course versus how we're dealing with it now? Are there benefits that can be gained over a longer term where those $1.3 million increase can be marginalized? So, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, to be honest with you, no. Interesting question, but I'm not quite sure how to answer that.
That's a sellable point, right, for the members between 2 and 3.
Well, yeah, certainly, yeah. I'm just thinking about golf. Now you got me thinking of economics. I'm kind of confused, but
In conversation with Daryl, the economics of this thing is the amount of water we buy every year. We're hoping to reduce the amount we have to purchase by the redesign of holding ponds and different, more efficient sprinkler systems and things like that. Also, I think, Daryl may disagree with this, or I don't remember if he said it, is that once we have a course that is easily maintained, it should reduce, in theory, reduce the amount of staff that Daryl would require to maintain the course. Daryl, do you want to comment on that?
Certainly. Some of the issues about...
With the microphone?
I'm sorry. So, if this plan would go forward, and it may or may not, whatever does occur, in the new corridors that are created, the new 5 holes, there'll be rerouting of, or there'll be new tree schemes that go in. We spend a lot of money at the club on tree maintenance, and a lot of our poplars now are really at the end of their life cycle. We spend in about 2 months in September and October just in tree related problems, including leaf removal and tree removal, a substantial amount of money that would be saved in this process if we changed out and got rid of those trees during that process, which we would do for the ones that are just about at the end of their life cycle. So I don't know if that answers the question well, but there is one method of savings. Speaking to Ron's issue on irrigation, if we redesign the irrigation ponds on 4, 5, and 6 in a way that we can retain water in a weir system that releases water to our irrigation pond, we can have ponds that are full, but an irrigation pond that is allowed to go down in depth and maximize the water consumption from runoff, so we don't have to buy as much city water. So there's a couple of methods, and if we are in a situation where we're not pumping as many bunkers, then we can potentially not have as many staff members. So yeah, potentially. I never want to say that you're not going to have turf replacement in the spring, because we are in Edmonton and there's going to be always some issues that can come up, but I see the bigger issues in savings on water and trees. So.
Are there any flower like gardens? There's like one on 16 and like there'd be a lot of that kind of stuff. Or you're not into that?
typically I'm more of a golf guy than a horticulturalist, so I hadn't really thought about it, but it's certainly not out of the question in terms of the way
I just go to Niagara Ridge occasionally, and like the place is just amazing, but flowers, and I'm not a big flower guy either, but man, it sure enhances the golf.
Yeah.
I find it just makes it.
I don't like all that ball